The time is 6 p.m. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Mr. Billingsley, can I please have a roll call?
Councilmember Hughes.
Here.
Councilmember Cordes. Here. Councilwoman Larson.
Here.
Councilwoman Wall. Councilmember Hawkins.
Here.
Vice Mayor Anderson.
Here.
Mayor Walter.
Here.
Madam Mayor, we have a quorum.
All right, thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to begin with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Michelle's on her phone. We phoned her in.
I heard her say here.
Okay, so at this time, we'll have our call to the public. Call to the public is for public comment on issues within the jurisdiction of the town council. Council rules limit public comment to 3 minutes. Individual council members may respond to criticism made by those commenting, may ask staff to review a matter raised, or may ask that matter be put on a future agenda. However, members of the council shall not discuss or take action on any open call to the public unless the matters are properly noticed for discussion and legal action. I do have 2 call to the publics at this time. First is Mr. Rick Grinnell. Hi, Mr. Grinnell. How are you this evening?
Mayor, very well, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rick Grinnell. I'm the Vice President of the Southern Arizona Business Coalition based out of Tucson. And you're probably saying, why is Tucson personnel coming up here to your good community? Our organization was started 7 years ago to support junior and developing mining companies throughout Southern Arizona particularly. Most of the rest of the state have established mining properties already. Since 1950, the population of the world has increased 3 times to 7.7 billion people. The need of copper has increased 9 times and will continue to increase. Right today, you have an issue coming before your executive session dealing with the Florence Copper Project. I followed this for the last, almost 8 years now. And I get your newspaper and I read through this, and I'm just hoping that maybe we can come to a point, or you all can come to a point with Florence Copper and their parent company, so that we can find resolution and move forward. Your annual economic spending is $134,000 for economic development. This project alone will provide an additional $2.3 million over the next 30 years. Now, I want to step back, though, a little bit.
You have 30 seconds, sir.
Thank you. The need for copper touches every one of our lives in so many different ways. From pacemakers to, in my case, artificial legs, and the ability for us to function as a society. I wish you all the best in your process, and I appreciate your time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Our second call to the public is Mr. Pete Caloris. Hey, Pete, how are you tonight?
First of all, I'd like to congratulate the chamber and the town. This last Saturday was amazing. The car show was absolutely fantastic. Brought a lot of people into our town that I'm sure would not have been here otherwise, and it brought a lot of business for everybody. One thing that happened, though, was this last Saturday there was a water main break, and it's going to happen. Our system is antiquated. I know we're getting them fixed. But the system to contact the businesses and let the businesses know when this happens needs to come up to the 21st century for this town. Last time that this happened to me for my restaurant, it was a $30,000 loss. I had to go through insurance because it happened overnight. It blew up my soda machine, and the whole upstairs flooded. This time, of course, I had no proper way of knowing that this was going on. I tried to call Public Works 6 different times. It's the weekend when I finally listened to the message at the very end that says, on the weekends, you got to call the Florence Police Department's non-emergency number if you want to file a complaint or if something's happened. I had no idea about that. Finally, I found out there's a water main break. By this time, I wasn't able to prep my restaurant staff or anything, and I had to close my doors, and I lost a good 70 customers. I told, sorry guys, we're closed right now, unfortunately. When this happened last time, I brought up the idea of maybe having a telephone system and being able to press a button and warning residents on that system that something like this was going on. I know that our public works guys, they work a lot and they can't go to all the businesses individually. I understand this, but hopefully we could come up with a system to move us into the 21st century.
All right, I appreciate your feedback. Brent, at this time, will you put somebody on that? Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak at this time before I close call to the public? And we're closing call to the public. Our first item, item 5A, is a public hearing to receive citizens' comments on a text amendment to the sign regulations of the Development Code and the first reading of ordinance number 667-18. This is an ordinance of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, amending the Town of Florence Code of Ordinances, Title 15, Land Usage, Chapter 150, Development Code, Section 150-31, Definitions, and repealing and replacing Part 3, Sign Regulations, Sections 150-92 to 150-130. This is case PZ 18-33 ordinance. Mr. Dana Burkhart.
Thank you very much, Mayor, council members, and thanks for holding a public hearing this evening to receive public testimony on ordinance number 667-18, which is, as you mentioned, an amendment to the town's development code, sign regulations. Hop right in. I thought we'd just start with why do we have a sign code, a high level. It's really to balance the needs of businesses, organizations, and individuals to convey messages through signs with the town's desire to maintain a safe and attractive environment. So it is a balance, we know. Really quickly, getting us to this point, we've had a little bit of history. This particular draft of the sign code was prepared back in 2015 or 2016, and at that time it was processed through the Planning and Zoning Commission for review, as well as the Historic District Advisory Committee and throughout staff. So we simply picked it back up in October of 2018, or prior to that, make some tweaks and other minor updates, having some other information now in hindsight at that time, and brought it forward to the Planning and Zoning Commission, also to a neighborhood public meeting, and then the Historic Advisory Committee. And then ultimately, the Planning and Zoning Commission provided a unanimous recommendation to the council to approve this ordinance and this text amendment back on January 17th of this year. And as you mentioned, this is the first reading. We're anticipated to come back on March 4th unless something occurs. That would be the second reading. Council could potentially take action. Very quickly, before we dive into the changes, the sign regulations and changes to these sign regulations as proposed do not affect existing signage. Existing signage is grandfathered and it would only affect or impact future applications. Existing signage, however, could take advantage of some of the provisions in here that are less restrictive than our current ordinance. And then also it's important to keep in mind that the historic district is very unique when it comes to development, including signage, and the Historic District Advisory Committee, as well as the Town Council, takes ultimate action on development in historic district, have a lot of latitude and authority to ensure that projects and signage that you see come before you are reinforcing and retaining that historic character. So there are some, there's a lot of variation again, unique situations that the council may consider to deviate from these regulations. That said, we'll hop into the overview of changes. As always, we have updated terms and definitions related to signage, and we've also reorganized, or as it was originally drafted, in 2016, it really took a step in reorganizing and clarifying a lot of the cadence and flow of that code and placing more similar chapters and related areas of sections together to allow it to flow and read a little easier. And then the impetus for, I believe, this code amendment, as well as sign code amendments throughout the nation, was a court ruling, Supreme Court ruling, Reed versus the town of Gilbert. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but in 2015, towards the end of 2015, Supreme Court made a ruling that on the Reed versus Gilbert case, that signage cannot be content-based. You cannot restrict the size or dimensions of signs or timeliness or location of signs based on the content. So you can read more about that in your staff report, or we really dive in, or I'd be happy to get into that a little more. But that is, again, probably the primary reason many communities across the nation have updated their codes. And here we're showing you the one primary example insertion into this sign code that really explains how we need to regulate signage and not fixate on the message, and it needs to be content neutral and viewpoint neutral. We really just need to focus on the time, place, and manner signs are displayed. So one of the big changes that occurred in this, that's proposed in this amendment, are the increased monument sign heights along the major transportation corridors or the state routes. It allows for a single project monument sign up to 15-foot max, and I think this is very similar to what was approved through a development agreement for the Circle K here on Main Street. And then arterial roadways are allowed up to a 10-foot maximum monument sign for a single property, and then outside of arterials, 8-foot would be the maximum height. That's probably one of the biggest changes in this code. Also, the proposed amendment includes allowing an electric digital sign per parcel. We probably have 5 or 6 right now in the community. This would allow and make that a legal sign to erect. Also, updates also include a guaranteed minimum of 16 square footage of wall signage. We know that there's some businesses, very few, but some businesses that have a building structure length less than 16 feet, particularly in the downtown, historic downtown, and this would guarantee any of those businesses a minimum of 16 square feet. Also, drive-through menu boards are allowed to go, they went from 40 feet behind the right-of-way up to 25 feet behind the right-of-way. And then the way the current code is written aggregates all signage and gives a maximum sign area like 232 square feet, monument sign, wall sign, directional sign, and so forth. The new proposed amendment breaks those out and gives you a maximum of 250 feet if your building is 250 feet long for wall signage, and then still allows you to have a monument sign and directional sign and so forth. Doesn't aggregate it. So technically, there would be more signage allowed on a parcel. I think you reviewed a comprehensive sign plan recently for a hospital. In that situation, I think the only item of that comprehensive sign package would be the size of the directional signs would still need to come before council for approval. But otherwise, the rest of that package would comply with the amendment as written. That's a quick summary. Mayor, council members, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, prior to opening it up to public hearing, are there any council members that have any questions or comments? Councilmember Larson?
I have a quick question. When I was reviewing, as on page 16, when you're talking here about the standards, limitations, and requirements for all signs, item I, it says all signs shall be professionally constructed and installed. While I normally would agree with that, it also doesn't cover, it appears to cover temporary signs as well as A-frames. To me, a temporary sign, which you outline here, or that's outlined here as being a maximum period of 30 consecutive days, and it appears to be talking about banners and simple little pendants, talking about grand opening signs. Those simple things seem like something that somebody could, throw on a nail and hang it up, or maybe hook it onto the front facade. Same with A-frame signs. Is it really necessary for them to be professionally constructed and installed?
I believe that's how the current code is written. And I can confirm that prior to the second reading, if that's okay. But to my knowledge, we didn't make any modifications to existing sign criteria. And having that statement of professionally made signs is somewhat standard language across communities, but point taken, and we'll follow up with you on that.
Just didn't seem quite applicable to those two items.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes, I have
Mayor Anderson.
a concern that, this whole sign code is too complicated. And I would like to see us have a work session where we can spend time going through and answering individual questions, because I just don't think we have time tonight to go through 33 pages. So my suggestion is that we table this and have a work session.
Okay. This part's just the public. Oh, I'm so sorry. Can I just finish? I don't know who spoke. Oh, hang on a second, Michelle. Sorry, this is our first time that we've actually phoned in a member of our council for the meeting, so we're just getting used to that. So we'll need to open up the presentation for the public, but in regards to moving forward, there's no vote on it tonight.
Okay.
But I do agree with a work session. I am familiar with looking over some of the other communities, and I was hoping that you could explain why we need 33 pages versus some other communities like Gilbert who only have 2 pages. Maricopa, I apologize. We were talking about it earlier.
Mayor, council members, in the, out of respect for time, like I mentioned, this had already been drafted back in 2015 and went through this whole process. So we had 2 choices: start over or pick it back up. And that was the choice that was made. But we can talk about that in greater detail at a work session. And I'm very familiar with the Maricopa sign code.
Okay.
This is not a criticism. This is just a suggestion, okay?
Business owners, have they given you any feedback?
We communicated with the Chamber of Commerce on a number of occasions and urged for some time on their calendar. Had not received any time. However, they did have a representative available at our community meeting that asked questions, took notes, and we did have a good conversation. In general, though, the regulations are definitely more business-friendly than, or the proposed amendments are more business-friendly than existing.
All right. Councilmember Cortez, did you have something you wanted to ask?
I actually just wanted to follow up with John on his comment as well, that this code is so confusing when you go through it, and as a business owner, it would be very difficult to understand what they could actually put in front of their business or on their building. So I do think that we need to make it a little easier for the residents and business owners to read and understand, because even I was kind of lost in some of it.
Okay, I appreciate your feedback. Councilmember Hawkins.
Well, one reason I think it's 30 pages is because we can either explain it to where people will know what is expected or not expected. If you make it too short, then you're going to end up with people saying, well, that's not in the code, whatever they come up with or object to. I think that's one reason it's got all the different elements written out. But anyway, if we're going to have a work session, we can discuss it then. But if we get it too short, then you're leaving yourself open for people not agreeing or interpreting it however they interpret it. So I think that's one reason we've got so much in the code, so many different variables, but trying to cover our bases. That's all I have.
All right. Councilmember Wall?
I was just going to mention, I attended one of the public meetings earlier, or towards the end of 2018, and it was not very well attended, although there was a representative from the chamber there. There was hardly any feedback from those in attendance. We might also cut back a little bit on the size of this document if we remove 10 pages of definitions, which is almost half of, or a third of the length of the document. Maybe those definitions could be put in a separate document if somebody has a question about what a particular sign means. Just a suggestion.
Thank you. All right, if there's no more questions or comments from the council, I am now opening up the public hearing. The public hearing is open. Is there anybody in the public that has any questions, comments that they'd like to come up and speak at this time? Hello, Larry. How are you tonight?
Great, Mayor. Thank you for having me. Larry Johnson, Greater Florence Chamber of Commerce. As the presenter mentioned, we did indeed receive communication about the process. As many of you are aware, I'm very new to the position, and we also have, this is in the midst of the busiest time of the year, not only for the chamber, our events, and our community, but also for our businesses. It's tremendously difficult for our businesses, whom are often counting their own tills and cleaning their own restrooms, to attend meetings in the middle of their business day. Moving forward, I'd really love to see the committees decide and actually identify the fact that this is a challenging time of the year. Many of these things could be worked on in the summer when it would be less encumbering for businesses, and also allow them to continue to move forward and candidly make hay while the sun shines. The sun is shining right now, not literally, unfortunately. It's not Chamber of Commerce weather, but this is the time of the year when our businesses need to focus on survival and making sure that they've squirreled away enough nuts for the summer. So if you would please consider that moving forward, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to add anything at this time? Okay, we're going to go ahead and close call to the public for public hearing comments. And item B is our public hearing to receive citizen comments on a text amendment on the on-site parking and loading regulations in the Development Code and first reading of ordinance number 668-19. This is an ordinance of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, amending the Town of Florence Code of Ordinances, Title 15, Land Usage, Chapter 150, Development Code, Section 150-31, Definitions, and Part 7, Parking, Loading, and Unloading, Sections 150, 156 to 150, 167. This is case PZ 18-34, Ordinance. Mr. Dana Burkhart.
And thank you very much, Mayor, council members. Again, thank you for holding this public hearing. Very quickly, similar to the sign code amendments, this parking code, I apologize, I'll back up. Keep in mind, the development code parking regulations only apply to on-site or private property, basically, or off-street parking areas, nothing to do with on-street or traffic on our roadways and so forth. So that said, why update the off-street parking and loading regulations? The last update was 2006, and we've had a lot of development occur since that time. We've identified that there is a need for more flexibility to effectively serve the various scenarios that have come before staff. We also know that the current ordinance does not itemize or provide any minimum dimensions to parking lot design, such as space dimensions, drive aisle dimensions, and so forth. It did exist at one time in a prior code in the town, but it is missing in the current code, so we know we need to update that. And then also, we want to address changes in technology and development patterns that have occurred over the decades. Really quickly, this amendment timeline's a little bit different. Planning and Zoning Commission initiated and gave the green light to amend the parking code. If you recall, there were some, I think, items or development design review projects that came before, and we recognized there were some issues with parking and how our current code was written and its prescription for number of required spaces and so forth and access. So for the preceding 6 months, we reviewed with the Planning and Zoning Commission a work session and their public meetings, as well as with a neighborhood meeting again on the Historic Advisory Committee on January 2nd. The development of those proposed amendments that you see before you. And on January 17th, the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommends the council approve this ordinance. So before I get into the overview of changes, like the sign code, existing parking is grandfathered. So the adoption of any of these amendments will not be retroactive in any way to any existing development. They only apply to changes of use that might increase or affect the required parking or new development. And then also, again, the historic district is very unique. As a matter of fact, there are specific standards in the historic district design guidelines that want to see parking oriented in different ways. So that would always, any development within the historic district would be subject to those regulations above and beyond the parking and loading ordinance that we're discussing this evening. So with that said, again, we have expanded the terms and definitions related to parking areas to make sure that's up to date and clear. We also found the need to create flexibility in the existing zoning code, like I mentioned, and we're going to get into greater detail on that item, as well as the updated development standards that are included in this amendment. And then finally, we also took a look at how the regulations could also enhance parking facilities and maintenance responsibilities in the community. So flexible ability that was built into the parking regulations, first off, starts with the reduction of requirements for parcels with parking areas of 20 spaces or less. We know that that type of business or a small site like that may be more of a mom and pop or something downtown in the historic area. That's a different animal, and we should look at that different than a large, expansive inline retail parking lot effect. So that is carved out and has some unique considerations and other opportunities. We've also increased the maximum allowing parking spaces at the town's discretion. The current code restricts the town from adopting or from approving a parking lot with more than 120% or 20% above the minimum required parking spaces. So if I came in and said, I need more spaces, we have a special event certain times of the year or something like that, we wanted the ability to, without a variance before the Board of Adjustment of the council, to allow for some discretion from the community development director's behalf to look at unique situations to allow more parking if desired. And then also a flexible item that was introduced into this code was to allow for larger parking areas to look at and utilize permeable surfaces to help reduce the heat island effect, as well as hydrology and drainage on site. And that would typically, as the code's written, reduce to a maximum of 20% of the parking area, and that would be the least utilized, or that remote area in the parking lot that doesn't tend to get a lot of traffic. So that brings us to the updated parking standards quickly. The number of required spaces based on use was updated. We did an evaluation of all our peer communities and looked at what the parking minimum parking requirements for each of the different uses were, and to see where we were at in line with that. And as I mentioned before, we ran into a few situations in the last year or two where we knew we were underparked or requiring too low of a minimum, and that's all been updated. And then also we've introduced the diamond islands within the landscaping. Again, we reviewed peer community codes to make sure we were in line or not more stringent than our peer communities. And we have some criteria inserted for that to allow more shade and bring trees and more of a visual aesthetic in our parking areas. And then again, the updated parking standards continued. We looked at the minimum dimensions of those drive aisles and entrances that I mentioned. Currently, the code restricts curb cuts or where you enter into a parking area from a right-of-way, public roadway, to 40-foot minimum. Well, that's pretty excessive, and that's actually standard, industry standards, closer to 32 feet, depending on the type of use and the size of the parking area and development. So that's been reduced. Also, we've included text to help staff and the public in reviewing code requirements understand the need for access and maneuvering for fire and refuse collection. And then here's an example of the graph that was created for the parking aisle, drive aisle dimensions. This particular graph shows the minimum standards based on the angle of parking being proposed. Finally, some other highlights of this code. We really tried to increase the opportunity for off-site and joint use parking. In the instance where we have underparked areas existing, they could, and they want to expand their use or change the use to a more intense traffic requirement, then we could allow for more opportunities to share parking with other sites. Also included some screening requirements for the storage of RV and trailers on residential lots. We've updated the ADA space requirements to be consistent and compliant with the federal ADA requirements. And then also looked at opportunities to encourage and promote electric vehicle provisions such as charging stations along our highways and our main routes through the community. And then, as I mentioned, took some liberties in looking at, well, how can we also make sure we're enhancing these parking facilities and the maintenance responsibilities. This particular first item does grant some greater flexibility and authority to the community development director to waive minor incremental parking increases based on future changes of use, so we can kind of work with business owners in their improvements for parking areas, or possibly avoid them altogether should certain criteria be met. Just reiterated maintenance responsibilities of landscaping, that's also a part of parking areas, and the upkeep and clean appearance of parking areas in the community. And then also the development director has some latitude on the timeliness of parking improvements, so he can create some schedule based on for development once a design review is approved and building permits approved. That's it. Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Does any members of council have any questions at this time? Councilmember Hawkins?
Well, I'd just like people to know that I was at all of these except the neighborhood meeting at the community center, and there was nobody from public at any of the meetings. It was just the commission and staff. Well, I'll take that back. Miss Ruth Harrison, she attended them. But other than that, there was nobody attending these. So I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know if, I was kind of surprised that there wouldn't been, but yeah, there was very little, well, it was almost zero participation from the community. So I don't know how important this is to them, but I think it's very important. But anyway, I just wanted that to be known.
Thank you. Okay, at this time we're going, Vice Mayor Anderson?
I have some comments, questions. First, there's no requirement for the number of egress and ingresses. I know when I was on planning and zoning, we required multiple egress and ingresses to parking lots that exceeded certain sizes. And so I don't see that anywhere in here. Did I miss that, or is that, what's the opinion on that?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, this code, the way it's written, is reliant on the fire marshal and public safety and other reviewers, internal staff reviewers, to determine how many access points are required. The fire code goes into depth into when and where fire lanes are required and multiple numbers of access and so forth, much greater than this code. in more detail in this code. So
Can you send that to me, because I couldn't find that in the fire code?
yes.
Okay. The other thing, I didn't necessarily agree with the, on page 2, where they're talking about it shall be paved with asphalt, concrete, or pavers, or cement concrete, and then the penetration of the bituminous materials, steel coat of bituminous binders. I think that's referred to as wrap, and that sometimes has an environmental impact, because that wrap could be recycled material. And according to what I read on the EPA site, that could have gas, oil, other factors in it. We've been fighting environmental issues here in the town for some time, and I just don't see the need to have that material as one of the options. We've been asking our builders to have asphalt or concrete or pavers for 10 years now. I just don't see the need for that. The other thing was on page 3, in the maintenance, you talk about shall be the responsibility of the lessee or the owner. I don't think the town can hold the lessee responsible. It has to be the owner. Maybe I could ask our town attorney if I'm correct on that.
Mayor, Council, Vice Mayor.
Yeah.
So that's in the current code. We can certainly take a look at that.
Yeah.
Well, we know push comes to shove, it's always the property owner that's ultimately responsible.
Well, we had an issue with that some time ago. Yes.
From my experience, the only way that you could have a lessee responsible for maintaining a parking lot is if that was part of their rental agreement and one of the terms of their individual agreement. But from our perspective, we wouldn't know that unless
Right.
it was expressly provided.
Let's see. I guess that's my question. The other thing I wanted to ask about grandfathered. We talk about things that are grandfathered in our code. Do we ever define what grandfathered means? Is that prior to the issuance of this, this code, or is it a certain time back, or?
There's criteria in the administrative portion of the zoning ordinance or the development code that goes through and explains what a non-conforming or a grandfathered circumstance is, and we can send you that as well.
Okay. One last thing, and this is just a general suggestion. When we talk about definitions, we put these definitions in each one of these codes. Why don't we have a code that covers all definitions, so we don't have to, put these in every code and the definitions of words and,
Common language?
Yeah, common language kind of thing.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, it is customary to have definitions because of the context that zoning and land use laws use. There are several different meanings in different contexts for a lot of these very common words. But when it comes to interpreting code, and like I said, looking at the brass tacks and the detail, having a clear definition on items is advantageous.
Oh, I'm not saying not have it. I'm just saying have one dictionary with all the codes in it.
So the zoning ordinance has a list of definitions in the beginning of the code. Now, and that's where these definitions would be inserted or
Okay,
updated.
good. All right.
Just back on the last item with regards to sign codes. Sign codes are a different beast altogether because they're so context specific. That's why typically, and we reviewed, okay, my preference is to have all definitions in one place, have everything clear and consistent. But there's so many definitions in sign code, especially after court rulings and the history of litigation over signage and what is freedom of speech, that most sign codes you'll look at will have a list of its specific definitions to it, and that's where we decided to make that reference. And that's how it was originally drafted, as I mentioned. But
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Larson, did you have something to add?
Yeah, while we're just discussing it, the things I wanted to talk about our stuff that was, it's black, it's obviously stuff you haven't edited, but while we're ripping it apart, I just wanted to clarify, maybe help me understand. I'm looking at page 3, item 3, the parking standards for multifamily, non-residential, or mixed use and PUDs. Under that, item number 1, it says parking areas should be screened from street view and residential development by a berm and/or wall with with landscaping. A couple questions about that. My question is coming from, there was a new building that was built in Anthem, which is a PUD, and they were told they had to build a wall. However, when I look around at, say, the Grill or even Safeway, I don't see walls necessarily at all points. So I wanted to know if that's something that we're covering. I mean, as far as, is that something we're currently doing? Understanding what a berm is. I mean, I've looked up the definition of what a berm is, but what that looks like, is that really reflective of what we're doing today? And then when it says with landscaping, does that mean they have to have landscaping with a wall or a berm? Or does that just mean, like, what is that? I guess that phrasing just seemed off to me. So if we could walk through what that looks like and what that means, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Mayor, Councilwoman Larson. Screening of parking areas is pretty common and consistent across most communities. We've identified that looking at the undercarriage or having a curb, a sidewalk, landscaping, then a parking area, a curb and parking area exposes the fronts of cars and the undercarriages, the headlights and so forth. So it's been long understood that screening that bottom 3 feet or the first 3 foot of that parking area is an aesthetic quality that communities look for. This has been in your code for some time. It's probably been in your code since 1972. We can go back and look at that original code, but it is something that's very consistent. Now, in later years, in the 90s, we realized, well, and yes, landscaping is always included because, again, we're trying to enhance a parking area that here in the Southwest, we have a lot of parking areas. We have a lot of high reliance on automobiles, especially in suburban and rural areas. So, yes, landscaping is always a quality that's required to provide that frontage aesthetic and a walkable, softer environment, and ideally some shade along our walkways. So in the 90s, we realized, or maybe the late 80s, at least here in the metro area or in the valley, that, well, you know, if they use berming and some other organic form of the landscaping in combination with walls that might be needed, or rocks and boulders and things like that, you know, we could really bring in more of that environmental, you know, natural appearance to property. So that's been offered as an option as well. It's not as widely accepted option because it consumes a lot more space when you do a berm because you're restricted on the slopes. I'm getting into the weeds, no pun intended, but it's just advantageous to do a wall to screen it. Now, why you have community development without them, I'm not clear on that. We can look at the time of that development and so forth, or if there was some sort of design review that occurred or something just didn't get built in the field. That may have happened, but Safeway in particular, I think as well, you know, they've developed a lot of sites over the years, and this is a very common requirement.
Okay.
Excuse me, go ahead.
Just a couple things. Well, I know Brent had something to say about this too, but about the landscaping, that's fine. But to me, if you build a wall, I don't know how you landscape a wall, which is the way I read that phrasing in particular. So I get what you're saying, but that's not the way I guess I read that. By a berm and or wall, comma, with landscaping. So if you have a wall, I don't know how you landscape a wall, but okay.
So landscaping at the base.
Along the bottom, okay, I'm with you.
Appearance.
As far as, Brent, did you want to talk about those particular parcels? Or you know what I'm talking about? Do you know what I'm referencing?
I do. So when screen walls came about, started in the 1970s, it was primarily a public safety issue. So if you can imagine living in a community with commercial, if you drive around in every community, including ours, you'll notice that there are screen walls on most modern development. If you have a bunch of cars lined up and they all turn their lights on and it's right next to the street and they're shining in your eyes, you can't see. So screen walls were brought about to keep direct headlights from shining in the traveling traffic's eyes. That's how they initially came about. Now, customarily, what I've traditionally seen is a screen wall requirement, but there's also a distance requirement. If that parking is set back from the street 150 feet, there's no need to screen. And that may be the case in Safeway, because you don't have headlights that are 10 feet away from somebody's eyes when they're driving in a car by. I don't know, I wasn't here when Safeway was built, but that's why screen walls exist, or why they originally came about in most every city's code, is to keep accidents from happening and people from being blinded.
I understand that. There's no specification, though, as far as if the parking is this way and you've got the, you've got the street heading this direction, you don't really have that same effect as far as shining right in your face. I get what you're saying there, but I don't know about those particular properties. But I know, at least from my perspective, it could also cause an undue burden, possibly, to the people that are building new construction, because financially building a wall for the entire length of their parking lot is a large portion of money. So that was my concern. It's something we might want to look into or see, I guess, if that's truly what we're doing.
I have a question on page 9 for the minimum required spaces. You have churches called out. I would prefer you to change that name and call them, assembly buildings or something other than churches. I think we're asking for a lawsuit if we pick on churches.
Places of worship is a common one? Okay.
Yeah. Well, no, I wouldn't even say place of worship. Absolutely not. I'd say assembly halls.
We'll take a look at that and provide an update for you.
Yeah. You know what I'm getting at, right?
I do.
Okay.
Councilmember Cortez, do you have anything to add? Okay, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak at this time? Go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you. Item C is recognition of the 34th Annual Historic Home Tour Committee. Mr. John Nixon.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Before I get started, I'd just like to say one of the reasons I'm talking louder than normal is I've had some more challenges with my hearing, so I want to hear myself speak as well. So if I'm blowing you out of your seats, I apologize for that ahead of time. It is indeed my pleasure, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, to come to you and just talk to you briefly about Home Tour, specifically the Home Tour Committee. As you know, our department does many special events. And all of them require planning and coordination as well. But I think I can speak with confidence when I say that the Home Tour is the one event that requires the most planning and the most coordination of all of our events. And a lot of people, a lot of organizations are involved in this, but the heartbeat of this whole event is our Home Tour Committee, made up of town staff and volunteers as well. Our last home tour was a couple of weeks ago on February 9th on a Saturday. Weather didn't totally cooperate, but we still had the home tour. We had over 800 paid visitors to our community, which we are very pleased with. I just want to give you a brief background of what the Home Tour Committee does. I wish I could say specifically what everybody does, but time does not allow that. But I want to give credit to our committee. They're involved in many different areas of the event, including selection and invitation of the homes, discussions with the homeowners, discussion about the route selection, also assistance with getting sponsors, helping us edit and review the booklet, the final booklet, and the list goes on and on. There's probably a half a dozen things I've forgotten that the committee does. But what I'd like to do now is go ahead and with your permission, Mayor, call up the Home Tour Committee members and give these committee members of certificates of appreciation, just a token of our appreciation for the amount of work and time and their own expense that they put in. And I just remembered one other thing that's very important to share with you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council, as well as the community. A number of our home tour committee members also go to speaking engagements within Pinal County and outside Pinal County and talk about and promote the home tour. They do this at their own expense. And I think that's fantastic, and I know that that also helps the number of people that come to home tours. So with that, I'd like to say each committee member's name. There's a couple that aren't here today, but I still want to mention them. I will go through the ones that are here today first, and if any of them want to say anything, like how great it is to work with town staff or something like that, feel free to do that as well. So anyway, first committee member, Chris Reed.
And it is my pleasure to work with this town and with the staff and all the volunteers. It's always so exciting when it's over, but it takes a year, believe me, it really does, and it's my honor to work with you.
Lynn Smith.
Actually, it's really an enjoyable thing. It does start usually in July that we start meetings, so we get to know each other over the whole year, and it always feels good when we see a good turnout. It makes it worthwhile. The museum never had any time that there was nobody in the museum. They just kept coming and coming. We had a good one. Thank you.
Barb Kelly.
Your town staff does a fantastic job of reining us all in, keeping us all on track, and you know, you have a great staff that runs this, and because of them, us as volunteers can shine. Thank you.
Is Lori Moore here? Lori is also on the committee and contributed greatly to it as well. We have a couple of few rookies on the committee this year. One is Mari Benitez. Mari?
Mayor, members of the council, this is my first year, as he said, and I definitely had a blast. It was something I dearly cherish as an experience I will remember for the rest of my life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another member of our rookie class, Larry Johnson.
Mayor, members of council, thank you again for allowing me to be part of this event. It's been wonderful working with staff as always, and I think we'd be terribly remiss if we didn't mention Miss Alice Felice. She was obviously instrumental in the beginning of this project, and we couldn't have done it without her help as well. So thank you again.
Mandy Rogers, is she here? Okay, Mandy was also a member of the committee. And then one other of our committee members who isn't a rookie, couldn't be here tonight, but she's done an outstanding job, is Sandy Walker. So thank you to those three that weren't here as well. I just want to conclude with a couple of final comments. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, we'd like to thank and recognize the homeowners in this home tour. Without them, there would be no home tour. It's as simple as that, regardless of all the coordination, the planning. We'd like to thank all the homeowners. We'd also like to thank some various businesses and other government agencies and some town departments for all their assistance and help. And then I'd like to close, as Larry said, our special events coordinator, Allison Felice, is out on maternity leave right now, so she is not here. But she took over the chairmanship of the committee in late August, I believe it was, did a fantastic job. And so if I could, I'd love a round of applause for Allison's efforts. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you so much. Item D is 2017-2018 Police Annual Report. Police Chief Dan Hughes.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. As you'll see, it is the 17 and 18. 17 got away from us, and it was so late, I said, we'll just combine them and do them both at the same time.
We're still the safest community, Dan. Chief Hughes.
Okay. So,
He's doing a great job.
we broke the department up into really two divisions. Operation Division, which is under the control of Lieutenant Terry Tryon. You'll see he takes care of all of the police services, our K-9 field training, all of the training, narcotics task force, anything to do with really patrol or uniformed officers, Terry takes care of. We have a lot going on for a small department, but we do a lot. Our second is support services, which Deanna Huss takes care of. It's basically a lot of our civilians, but you can see it's very important in that it's everything from our budgeting to our evidence collection, our records, and a lot going on there. She's also our department PIO when we have to put out different press media releases. What's important here is our crime stats, as you can see, from 2014 through 2018. We look at crime as like a triangle. There's 3 points to crime. Just like on the triangle, we have opportunity, we have a perpetrator or a suspect, and a victim. And if we can break one of those points off, we can stop crime. So we work real hard on eliminating victims. We spend a lot of time being proactive, talking to people, educating them on how to make themselves crime-free. We'll do business surveys. We also do home surveys for security, and they're available free at no charge. Anything we can do to be proactive to stop crime. And some of the things I'd like to point out from the crime stats, as you can see, is our larceny, which is theft, has went down. Those are the things that we can really work on through education. We can help people not be victims, keep them to lock their cars and do things like that. Our proactive patrols are instrumental. The one thing I would like to point out is assaults have went up. Assaults are things, it's a person's crime and very difficult. We have domestic violence help available to people, but I'd also like to point out that a lot of those assaults come from the private prisons. We are responsible for any crime that happens in the private prisons. In court civic, if one prisoner strikes another one, we take the report in as part of our stats. So I know that people say that, well, they're locked up, but in the private prisons still count in our statistical information. As you can see, our motor vehicle thefts went down. We recovered 6 out of the 9 this last year, and we work hard on to try and keep those crimes low as we possibly can with the officers and what we have available to do that. How the calls are received, as you can see, a lot of it's proactive. Our officers are out there. Nearly 4,000 phone calls coming in, 911. So we do keep busy and try and respond as quickly as possible. This is our top 20 violations. These are misdemeanors. You can see the majority of them have to do with our traffic related. We have done quite a bit speeding is still our #1 issue, but we've done a lot with the radar trailers and educational programs to kind of, you can see it's almost leveled off 481 and 482 and 17 and 18. So a couple in the middle there, the drug paraphernalia, those are actual misdemeanor crimes. And even for a community our size, those are pretty low stats, considering how widespread drugs are in the opioid crisis. And last but not least, we still maintain being one of the safest cities in Arizona for our size, and we're really proud that we've been able to achieve that for the last several years. We have a lot of help and a lot of support, and we really appreciate your help and your support in giving us the tools and the vehicles and the supplies that we need to continue to do that. Any questions? I know it was short, but I gave you a full report, but I didn't want to bore you with a lot of.
Your report was perfect. It had just the right mix of data and graphics. And I'm proud that we're the safest community and we're continuing that tradition. I feel that we're doing a great job. We have outstanding leadership, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. It's a great place to work.
Councilmember Hawkins?
Well, I was just wondering, on the vehicle thefts, the 9 vehicles, were most of them like recreational vehicles, like quads and motorcycles, or were they all cars and trucks, or what?
Actually, it was a combination. There were several ATVs, and there were some that were taken by family members and not returned. So it was a little bit of a combination. We didn't have a lot of just random car thefts. It's usually somebody knew someone or failed to return it. Those are the types of issues that we run into most times.
Yeah, that's something I just wanted pointed out, that there were, in the realm of things, there were minor thefts, motorized thefts, compared to cars and trucks. There was motorcycles and recreational vehicles. Yeah, but I didn't want people to think we had a
No, we don't have an epidemic.
an epidemic of vehicle, on-road vehicles.
Thank you.
All right,
I have a question for you, too.
Yes, sir.
This is one of the neighbors asked me, but we were talking about being a safe city, and they asked, did we keep any statistics on how much of our crimes were illegal immigrants?
We really haven't. That's not something we've really tracked. We just look at either you're a criminal or you're not.
Okay.
When it comes to the illegal aliens, if we follow the law, if there's a crime and it's a question we need to ask, then we ask about whether or not they're an illegal alien.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next agenda item is a presentation by the Pinal County United Way, Live United. Mr. Braden Biggs, how are you tonight?
Wonderful. How are you, Mayor?
I'm good, thank you so much. Thanks for coming out.
Of course. Thank you so much for having us. So for those who don't know, my name is Braden Biggs. I'm the Community Programs Manager for the United Way of Pinal County. I'm here tonight to present to you our 2018 annual report video, and then to talk a little bit to you all about the work that we do specifically in Florence and, of course, across the community in the county, and answer any questions that you might have. So for those who don't know, our executive director is currently on her way out. Actually, she's transitioning to a new role in Northern Arizona. So I got tasked to come and present to all of you. So the video here is everything that we worked on in 2018 throughout the county, and you will see some highlights here of what happened in Florence directly. So.
Problems. The ones nobody talks about at parties. The ones that seem impossible to solve. We go looking for them.
The United Way has grown to be an integral part of the Genesis Project through their presence here on Mondays, and they have helped more than 400 people work their way through the variety of agencies, from social services to children's support, Social Security, driver's licenses, whatever mentoring is required. United Way has been here to help our guests.
And people want to give, they want to help, but how do they know where to give? And through the United Way, just everything they do, they're on top of, and it helps people give them a venue on how to give and how to help.
So we identified and spoke with 100 homeless people during that process, and then decided that with the help of United Way and with the city, we would form the task force, and then we'll deal with each of the issues, and then hopefully that in the end, that person is off the street in an affordable house with a job and is actually supporting himself.
I used to receive the weekly reader in the mail once a month as a child. It had stories and puzzles and other things, and it was a highlight as a kid, and I still have great memories of it. So I support 10 children with the Dolly Parton Imagination Program at $30 a piece, and I donate my tips that I receive here in the restaurant for this program. So I'm glad to do it. Will you live united?
Hey, I did. Okay, so of course, the United Way of Pinal County lives united through Florence Living United. So these two pictures here, the one to the left and to the right, are actually from our most recent annual dinner in September of 2018, where we typically present the top 15 campaigns throughout Pinal County. And this year we held it at Windmill Winery here in Florence's backyard. And we also completed a community service project that we'll talk about here in a little bit as well. And we are happy to announce that this year for 2019, we are coming back to the Windmill Winery again in September. So that'll be a wonderful night, a night you guys don't want to miss. We're really excited to roll out the theme, but I can't do it yet. But it's a star-studded, award-winning night. That's all I can say. So a little bit about us. The United Way of Pinal County has been around since 1981. Traditionally, people know us as your local payroll deductions processor, and expanding on that, your community resource connector. We are the people who are driving the infrastructure movements all throughout Pinal County and are able to work with every nonprofit, social service agency, faith-based agencies, city, county governments, and small and local businesses all the way up to the large guys as well. So our three main focus areas are family wellness, reading by third grade, and homelessness. All three of those areas have various forms that happen all across Pinal County in different ways. Our largest fundraiser is the Spring Golf Tournament, which this year is going to be April 27th at Robeson Ranch, where we typically raise anywhere between $20,000 to $35,000 specifically for early reading initiatives. So for anybody who doesn't know Pinal County's early literacy rates, we typically cover about 30% of our kids in Pinal County aren't reading proficiently by the time that they reach third grade. If you move that one step higher to our high school graduation rates, hovers at about a 74.6% here in Pinal County. Roughly 30% of our kids aren't graduating. And if you move that to the adult level, about 30% of Pinal County adults at some point in their life end up on some form of short-term or long-term government assistance. So that's why our spring golf tournament is so important, because all of that money goes directly towards impacting early reading initiatives, which we know that if a child does not read proficiently by 3rd grade, there can be more systemic problems later on in life. So again, reading by 3rd grade, the Florence Reading Committee has been established within this last year, and through that committee, over 60 sock puppets have been created, 50 literacy kits have been donated to Head Start. We're working on mentoring youth with, mentoring young kids with our reading programs. Our partners are the Town of Florence, the Florence Women's Club, the Rotary Club, and of course the local school district here, and then the generous community members throughout all of Florence. We participated in a family volunteer day a couple months back, and about 10 volunteers donated about 3.5 hours of their time collected. So the value of that's about $736 in labor. We bagged about 125 literacy kits, and we created about 48 sock puppets, and we partnered with the Town of Florence and Disney. And what's really cool is if you look at those pictures, we kind of created a little joke about this one, but the one on the right, the pig, was on the run from the pork shop in Santan Valley with Sheriff Puppet Lamb to the left of him. Mark Lamb got a good kick out of that one too. So, but up on top, you can see some of the various sock puppets that we create, and all of those go into our literacy bags that get distributed all across Pinal County, which then include an age-appropriate book, some light reference reading material for the parents to kind of know what's going on, as well as a coloring book and some crayons, and then that sock puppet for more of an interactive play tool for the children to grow and read to and move beyond. We have our Friends, Families, and Neighbors program, or FFN for short. This is a First Things First Pinal Regional Partnership grant that we have for about $700,000, which provides quality early learning, being a foundational tool for early reading and success for early development. The Expect More Arizona benchmarks is what we tie into the measurements on that, as well as Pinal 60 and Achieve Pinal and all the various other partnerships and groups that are working there. So many children in Pinal County are a part of their friend, family, and neighbor care for all or part of their day. And the goal of that program is to provide access to resources, trainings, networking, and professional development opportunities for these home child care providers, as well as to provide educational materials to the children in their care. And currently there are 8 Florence providers participating. So Feed Pinal, Mayor Walter, I believe that this is the one that you were at. That was back in, well, September is Hunger Action Awareness Month, and October is actually Hunger Action Month. So Florence in Action, we had about 40 volunteers who donated 2 hours of their time, just under $2,000 in labor value, and we packed 5,000 servings of minestrone, and I actually think that that was 10,000, not 5,000.
We did, because you guys, it was amazing. The delivery ended up coming to the community center, plus Manny brought some.
Yes.
So we made double. It was incredible.
Yes, so a slight misfortune in the logistics, but that's okay, because like the Mayor said, we were able to double everything and do 10,000 meals and help spread those not only in Florence, but all across Pinal County. And actually, there's a huge group of those that went to helping the Superior Food Bank when Superior had some issues with their food bank, so a large chunk went up there to help restock those shelves. And my favorite picture is over here on the left with Mayor Walter and Councilwoman Cortez in that, but the food distributed all went to the Elks Feeding Empty Little Tummies, the Florence Unified School District, the Superior Food Bank, Apache Junction Unified School District, and the leftovers were taken to a local church here in Florence to be made into extra kits and be given out at their food pantries. We do have the Heat Relief Network, which we're actually launching. That launched at the beginning of February as well. This is an annual thing that we do in partnership with about 70 different agencies. That's a partnership between United Way, Pinal County Government, and the Central Arizona Government Network. Last year we had over 70 partners. We collected and distributed 39 pallets of water, which, if memory serves, is like 80,000 individual water bottles. This year, our goal is to collect and distribute 50 pallets of water, which is 110,000 individual water bottles. We issue heat, well, we don't issue them, but the weather department issues the heat warnings, and we help to spread those messages out there. We also help to spread the freeze warning. So tonight, please remember to keep your faucets tripping because there is a freeze warning tonight. We do collaborate with APS and SRP for our high heat days and cooling days. And those 70 partners that I mentioned, those can be anything from a drop-off station, a hydration station, a collection station, to basically allow anybody access to water who needs it, especially our most vulnerable in the summer months. The Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, which is currently going on right now all across Pinal County. Last year, we prepared 1,300 county taxes countywide. We had $1.5 million in total refunds. 430,000 of that went to the Earned Income Tax Credit refunds, which could be anything from a single parent with 1 or 2 kids, a grandparent raising their child. Again, the most vulnerable populations, typically they fall under the $30,000 to $40,000 or less income range. And I'll just do a shameless plug because I manage the VITA program. If there is anybody out there who makes less than $66,000 in annual household income, please come see us. We can do your taxes for free. Don't spend the $210+ on average that it costs to go get your taxes done. And through that program last year, we were able to assist roughly 100 residents of Florence. Our annual dinner, like I mentioned last year, it was at the Windmill Winery, and 2019 is confirmed. We are extraordinarily excited to be able to have it here again. Last year, we raised about $2,000 for the for the Coolidge Unified School District food backpacking program. We had about 170 people in attendance. And that service project that I mentioned, we packed 100 literacy kits and peanut butter and jelly kits, which were all donated to our local schools here in Florence and Coolidge. And that is it. So I'm happy to answer any questions or anything that you might have.
All right. Well, I certainly appreciate your presentation. And I made a sock puppet too.
Yes, you did.
No, that was so fun. I love what you're doing in the community and for the community, so I want to say thank you. Moving forward, do you know who's going to be moving into Manny's position when she completes her transition to the Boys and Girls Club?
We do not. The job posting is going out tonight or tomorrow, and then our board will be interviewing. I believe they're going to be going through their first round of interviews at the beginning of March. So as that comes out, we will, of course, let everybody know and do our introductions across all the communities.
Okay, well, we look forward to that continued partnership, yes. And I really do appreciate what you're doing. Council? All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. All right, our next item is our consent agenda. Consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be handled by a single vote as part of the consent agenda unless a council member or member of the public objects at the time the agenda item is called. Item A is approval of Addendum 2, modification of lease agreement dated October 1st, 2016 between the Town of Florence and Bucks for Style, LLC. Item B, award a contract to Right Away Disposal, LLC for solid waste services, which is sludge hauling component only. Item C is the approval of January 3rd, January 7th, 14th, 22nd regular, and 22nd special Town Council meeting minutes. And item D is to receive and file the following board and commission minutes. First, December 13th, 2018, Art and Culture Commission meeting minutes. The second is December 2nd, or 26th, 2018, HDAC Commission meeting minutes. Third, October 17th, 2018, Library Advisory Board meeting minutes. Fourth, July 26th, 2018, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting minutes. And fifth, December 20th, 2018, and January 3rd, 2019, Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your consent agenda. Is there any member of the public or council that would like any item removed at this time?
I'd like to have item A removed.
Item A? Okay. All right. With that, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda excluding item A.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with removal of item A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Vice Mayor Anderson?
My question about the lease agreements, I thought we were modifying two different agreements.
Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, we are doing one agreement this evening and plan to have the other lease agreement addendum at the next meeting, and that was due to something that occurred during the or earlier this month with the tenant paying rent. We wanted to make sure that she was compliant with her existing lease before we brought anything else to the council.
Okay, thank you. I make a motion that we approve item A.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. And motion carries. All right. Item 7 is our unfinished business. This is ordinance number 670-19. This is our second reading and adoption of an ordinance of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, amending Town of Florence Code of Ordinances, Title 7, Chapter 72, by adding a new section, 7205, relating to the use of portable wireless communication devices, including severability, establishing an effective date, and repealing conflicting ordinances. At this time, I'd like to welcome Mr. Brendan Lyons up to the podium.
Mayor Walter and council members of Florence, thank you very much for having me. I'll make myself available afterward to answer any questions. My name is Brendan Lyons, and I'm a non-paid executive director of Look, Save a Life. Distractions are real. Every day, distracted driving kills, and families are left to bear the burdens of these preventable losses. Distracted driving is defined as anything that takes your eyes off the road, your hands off the wheel, and your mind off the task of driving. Humans cannot operate a motor vehicle without risking public safety while utilizing their phone while driving. I'm going to show over here to my left, we've got 3 images. In May 2013, DPS officer Timothy Huffman in the center vehicle was on scene of a motor vehicle crash about 40 miles outside of Yuma. That semi-truck driver to the right was looking at Facebook at inappropriate content, plowing into the back of him, killing him instantly. A few months later, in October 4th, 2013, I present you my bicycle, and over on that table are my friends, countless individuals who couldn't be here tonight. Sadly, as a former firefighter, I often responded to these devastating crashes. I saw firsthand, not only to those who fell victim, but to the families left behind to pick up the pieces. According to my crash report, on October 4th, 2013, a motorist traveling at 45 miles per hour struck me from behind as I was in a dedicated bike lane. I sustained numerous spinal and pelvis fractures, was treated to a traumatic brain injury, and forced to a lengthy hospital recovery, not to mention taking me away from my fire career. I went through months of doctor's appointments with seemingly endless cognitive, physical, occupational, and vocational rehabilitation. I often had to use a wheelchair to get around and couldn't drive for up to 6 months. I was informed that bystanders had stopped instantly to render aid. One passerby, who arrived seconds after the collision, stated, "We stopped. There was a lady picking up stuff off the road. We helped clean the road so the traffic could pass. Your bike was scattered a good 30 feet down the street. Not sure if the radiator was leaking. Picked up plastic from the car's front end. Not sure if it was the lower front bumper or underneath up in the fender well. But the vehicle had sustained a lot of damage. A lot of damage because it had struck me at 45 miles an hour. There's a woman helping your girlfriend and a man with you. I stood over you for a couple minutes. Although not trained in first aid, we heard sirens approaching, knew that we were in the way, so we went ahead and left. The sirens heard screaming to our aid were in fact my brothers and sisters from the very fire department that I was employed. I was told at first they didn't even recognize me. But at the moment loading me in the back of the ambulance, they were stunned, realizing that they were treating one of their own. They packaged my girlfriend and I in full protective spinal precautions, immobilizing us to long backboards, transporting us to Southern Arizona's Level 1 trauma facility at Banner University Medical Center. What I do remember didn't occur until days later. I remember awakening in a hospital bed in excruciating pain. I remember a cornucopia of wires, tubes, electrodes, and multiple IV lines extending from my body. I remember the profound burning sensation from sliding across the rough asphalt. And I can recall a team of doctors, nurses, and therapists sit me up for the very first time. I can recall screaming from the piercing pain that must have echoed throughout the hospital walls. I share this story because it's a raw reality of what happened when someone was using their phone. It's a strange thing waking up in a hospital bed, not able to perform simple tasks such as walking or going to the bathroom on your own, when the day before I was performing my duties as a firefighter or riding my bike 100 miles on any given day. I hope that my story resonates with each and every one of you on how a moment's distraction can be a lifetime of regret. Now, I'm lucky to be standing before you as a survivor, and as a survivor, I have a level of responsibility to use my voice, when all too often, they don't have one to. Here's some numbers. 26 jurisdictions have adopted ordinances in the state of Arizona to regulate distracted driving. 23 of those are hands-free. To further underscore this significant growing trend, of these 26 ordinances, 15 of them have been adopted since 2018 alone. I could certainly talk about the statistics and the number of crashes and fatalities that are on the rise right here in Arizona, but this isn't about numbers. This is about lives. Such lives as Salt River Police Officer Clayton Townsend, DPS Officer Timothy Huffman, former Phoenix firefighter Thomas Hall, Barbara Applebaum, Megan Lee, Daniel Wilson, Robert Lucky, Frank Forsetto, Rob Dollar, Jennifer Hines, John Knorr, Timothy Breslin, Sean Doss, Humberto Noah, Kathy Cook, Michael Allison, Manuel Patton, and Linda Doyle. I implore you, and many others, I implore you not only to pass this ordinance, but by a unanimous decision, you will be sending a loud message to our state legislature that local jurisdictions are now being forced to act because of its failure to do so. And it will take a concerted effort of elected officials, law enforcement, and transportation safety advocates to end this deadly trend. Together, we can drive down distracted driving. I thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So I asked Mr. Lyons to come here today for the presentation because of our ordinance that we have before us this evening for adoption. I had the opportunity to speak with him in early December, and after seeing him share his story, I learned of the movement that is happening to influence state legislature to make this change. I feel it's important, and that's why I wanted us to have this opportunity this evening to have our voices go up to the state legislature to ensure safety while on the road. So are there any questions from him at this time?
I've personally observed erratic driving that has been observed as distracted by people texting and talking on telephones. So I sympathize greatly with the effort, and I certainly would support it. I do have a question about the status of SB 1165, if you're aware.
Absolutely, I'm very familiar with that. SB 1165 is going before Transportation Committee tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I can tell you that I've been working on this effort with distracted driving bills going back as far back as my crash in 2013. Now, we could sit here and say, hey, let's hold off on making a vote, or we can contribute to the discussion, but that is the status of SB 1165. It will be going before committee tomorrow, and we shall see what the votes are, but there is a lot of noise. Like I said, 15 jurisdictions since the start of 2018, and that's a pretty significant trend. But at the end of the day, they still need to vote just like yourselves.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hawkins?
Yes, I'm kind of disappointed that it allows people to text or do anything. I mean, whatever. Distracted driving at a red light or a railroad crossing. I think you should be off the road, parked, if you're going to be doing it. it says, it prohibits driving while holding, typing, or manually operating a portable device unless the driver stopped at a red light or railroad crossing or is parked. I agree with the parked, but I don't think they should be allowed at a red light or a railroad crossing to be distracted, because intersections and in a train, I think when you're under control of the vehicle on a highway, I think it should be prohibited.
And sir, I respectfully agree with you. I did not create this.
Oh, no, I'm just stating that I'm all for it. I think they need to go a step further up there in the legislature. I think they need to prohibit the red lights and the railroad crossings. I think you should be parked in a safe area if you're going to be
Agree with you.
doing it. That's all. No, I'm all for prohibiting it.
Okay. He's calling her.
Oh, okay.
Councilmember Hughes? Oh,
I totally agree with this legislation, and I think it's something that we need to vote on. I think it's timely.
go ahead, Councilmember Hawkins.
Yeah, there's one other thing. It says that our ordinance may be overridden by the state ordinance. So if it is, I mean, if we go ahead and vote on this, and then the legislature does theirs and it's different, we're obligated to live by their decision, apparently. So I'm just wondering from staff, if we go ahead and vote on this and the state comes up with something different, then we won't have to come up with it. In other words, spend time rewriting the ordinance. I mean, other than to put whatever they have, because my understanding is the state has the final say-so.
Yeah, correct. Mayor, Councilmember Hawkins, our intent is to mirror as best we could the legislation that is proposed at the Capitol right now. We have reasonable assurance that that will be approved through committees, and the governor has pledged to sign a distracted driving bill that arrives at his desk. So we feel comfortable with that. That being said, in committee tomorrow morning, there are already 2 amendments, and so we've tried our best to even stay on top of that for today. Those amendments do include a provision where the enforcement of the state's distracted driving law would not begin until January of 2021. That effectively would allow us the time where we could go and say our ordinance is repealed in favor of the state's, but the state's language includes preemption over the cities and towns' ordinances regardless. And so this makes it, if Senate Bill 1165 were to pass, it makes it a matter of statewide concern, and the state would set that policy.
Okay, so if we pass this tonight, then it'll go into effect within 90 days, right? Not at 2 years from now.
30 days, correct, yeah.
Good, okay. Because I think sooner the better.
Hi, Michelle, welcome back. Did you have anything, any questions or anything that you'd like to add? All right, thank you for that feedback. Councilmember Larson?
I just wanted to first of all say thank you for coming tonight and for speaking. And as you know, I had the honor to speak with you before the meeting tonight, obviously addressing some of the concerns that I had brought up at the last meeting. First of all, I wanted to say, obviously, any life that's lost is obviously a tragedy, and I have the utmost respect for the work that the police officers do. And we want to obviously ensure both their safety as well as our citizens' safety. And I think a texting ban is certainly overdue, and we had, in our discussions, pointed out a lot of our similarities as far as the way our thinking is and where we'd like to see this head. We just had some differentiation as far as the implementation is concerned. One of my biggest concerns, if not the big concern, is the ability to make it a primary offense in which the police officer can initiate a pulling over of a citizen simply because they believed they saw them on their phone. To me, that opened the door to possible targeting by police officers, and possibly also when you're thinking about Bluetooth, there's a big misconception that hands-free means distraction-free, and as we both agreed, that's not the case. Right. So especially when you think about our local community here that maybe have simple technology or simple phones, using a Bluetooth device might require something set up separately. Some of the concerns I had also was the ability for those devices to fall, their batteries to die, to cause more additional distractions than it would have been if they had simply picked up the phone. So that's where I was struggling with some of the actual using the phone, not saying for texting. Texting I'm in support of. It was the using the phone for conversation, because either way you are distracted. The distraction comes in the communication, not in actually holding the phone. And while I agree you should be having two hands on the wheel, I personally haven't seen a whole lot of people who tend to do that. They usually use one hand regardless of whether the hand is on there or not. My point is that the studies have proven that the hands-free doesn't mean distraction-free, and actually sometimes can cause additional distractions. So some of those concerns that I had, I understand. I definitely want this to be a state issue. The state definitely needs to have control of this. Having different regulations for different areas doesn't help anybody, because somebody could be able to text and drive in Santan Valley, and then they hit Florence, and suddenly it's an offense. And obviously the signage is going to be helpful with that. I just have some concerns about the implementation of that type of a policy. I'm glad to lend my support to the state so that they can make this decision. And I would hope that our police officers would, as we discussed last time, be able to implement this in a way that's protective of our citizens as well as the community as a whole.
Go ahead, Mr. Lyons.
Mayor and Council, if I may respond, as far as the primary versus secondary offense, secondary offenses tie the hands of law enforcement. I'm sure that your chief can speak on that issue, but as a secondary offense, they can't pull over a motorist unless they're breaking a primary offense law too, and so it doesn't allow the opportunity to educate, issue a citation, or a warning at their discretion. That's regarding the offenses. Secondly, as far as hands-free is absolutely not risk-free. I concede with that. That's true. However, hands-free does take the phone, which is the primary distraction, out of the driver's hands. Texting bans, you did publicly say that you support, are actually not enforceable. And the reason for that is that if a motorist is holding a phone in their hand and you have a texting ordinance, how does law enforcement know if you're sending and receiving a text message or being on one of the many social media apps without infringing upon your Fourth Amendment rights of privacy? And so for those reasons, I do encourage the hands-free ordinance respectfully.
Thank you. Yeah, there was some points in as far as the state law is concerned where they can't ask for your phone or ask for your, so as far as implementation, I struggle with, as a citizen, how do I protect myself? If I was not holding my phone and a police officer says he saw me on my phone might be sitting on my console because that's where it always sits. How do I defend myself to say, no, I wasn't? I mean, there's nothing versus a text. I can show the date stamp. I can show the time stamp. I can prove to the officer I was not.
Call for question, please. call for question.
Okay. Do you want to read the?
I would like to make a motion that we approve ordinance 670-19 as presented here tonight.
I'll make a second. Roll call vote, Brent.
Councilmember Hughes?
Aye.
Councilmember Cordes? Aye. Councilmember Larson?
Nay.
Councilmember Wall?
Aye.
Councilmember Hawkins?
Nay.
Vice Mayor Anderson?
Aye.
Mayor Walter?
Aye. And the ordinance passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for coming out. I do appreciate it, and I welcome if anybody has any further questions to meet with Mr. Lyons. I want to take just maybe a 5-minute break, if that's okay, and anybody who wants to continue the conversation can.
Madam Mayor, just one
Yes.
correction on the signature page
Yes, ma'am.
of the ordinance. The very first line, there's the word bread.
That is a typo. That is a mistake that came from the desk.
I'm not sure what that word should be.
Let me scroll down.
Where is that?
It's on the signature page of the ordinance. The
It's
page
not
is-
on the online part, so I think they must have, oh,
Yeah, what
will
else?
not read. Somebody typed a B instead of the read.
Okay,
So such decision will not read to affect the validity of the remaining portion thereof.
okay. I couldn't figure out what that word should be. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
I'd like to explain my vote on that. I thought, it's been a while since we've used the parliamentary procedures to the point where one councilman cuts off another councilman. I thought we were voting to allow Councilman Larson to continue her discussion with the presenter. But I wanted to vote for the ordinance, but I thought we were voting, are we going to cut off Councilman Larson when he called for the question? We don't do it that often, and my mistake, but anyway, I just want you to know that.
Mr. Billingsley, go ahead.
Mr. Hawkins, there's not a vote required to call for the question. However, calling for the question was not appropriate in that case because there was not a motion on the floor. So Councilwoman Larson should have been able to continue her conversation. The question should not have been called.
That's what I thought.
And as you said, we rarely use parliamentary procedure, so I apologize. We did bring the vote forward. Can we change his vote to reflect an aye?
I'm told no. The matter was voted on and it is closed.
All right, Mr. Kelling can note it in the paper if you don't mind, sir. Thank you. All right, we're going to take.
But there
Made, I believe, by Mr. Anderson to approve it.
I thought he called for the question. Okay, never mind.
5 minutes. We are back.
That's still here.
Does anybody know where Councilmember Larson went? Just go ahead and give a moment. I'm sorry, Mr. Barber. Okay. The next item is under new business. It's item number A. This is resolution number 1687-19. This is discussion, approval, disapproval of a resolution of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, adopting revisions to the Town of Florence personnel policy. Mr. Scott Barber.
Mayor Walter and members of the council, we're bringing before you this evening for your consideration 2 changes to the town's personnel policy. We try to be very, very careful and not bring policy amendments too often for your consideration, but we feel this was appropriate at this particular time. I'm going to go over the 2 proposed changes, and certainly if the council has any general or specific concerns or questions, we certainly stand ready as staff to move the discussion into a study session environment should you so choose to do that. But 2 of the, we have, anyway, 2 policy amendments before you this evening. The first relates to our town workplace violence/harassment policy. This policy has been in place since the general rewrite of our personnel policy, which took effect on July 1st of 2013. It's been a number of years ago, and I can tell you that people who do what I do, both in the private and the public sector, have really been looking at the harassment policies in light of the events that transpired over the last couple of years particularly. And so we felt it was time to bring forward some amendments. Like most other communities, we don't reinvent the wheel. And so when we want to begin to do a policy evaluation, we're able to reach out with other communities, get examples of what they're doing. We're also able to take advantage of both review by internal counsel, that is our town attorney, and also because we're members of the Arizona Municipal Risk Retention Pool, we're able to tap into specialized human resource outside legal counsel to review the policy provisions that we'd like to propose. So these have been thoroughly vetted at this point in time. That doesn't mean all the questions have been answered. But in relationship to the workplace violence/harassment policy, the first half of what's been presented to you is essentially the current policy. But we found through our investigation and through practice that it was time for us to begin to bring a little more definition to the concept of harassment. And so the second half of this policy specifically speaks to that issue. The best practice out there also adds specific provisions related to making sure that people who bring forward complaints in good faith with presuming them to be true get protection for doing that. We want to make sure that that's an understanding about that. But best practices also suggest that we need to kind of close the back door, and that is to recognize in the event that a complaint that's brought forward is proven to not have any validity, there's some implication to that as well. So that's our first policy proposal this evening, and that is an overhaul, if you will, of our current policy related to workplace violence and harassment as it relates to our employees. The second proposal this evening is a new policy, which we've not had in the past. And we first started working on this about 2.5 years ago, actually. And we went out and gathered examples. I was able to get onto an HR director's listserv and find out, for those that would respond, who has policies relating to prohibitions about recording in the workplace and who didn't. We brought those together and very, very carefully crafted a brief policy in regards to this. Arizona is a one-party state, so under the law, as long as one party knows recording is going along, then it's legitimate, it's okay under the laws of the state of Arizona. But in practice, certainly, as we reach out to other examples and our own experience, the idea of conducting our work, if you will, in our workplace, counseling, whether as a department director or supervisor, the town manager, town attorney, and not knowing that it's being recorded kind of brings a chilling effect into trying to be proactive and positive in addressing issues and resolving questions. And so I hate to bring negative policies forward for consideration, but quite frankly, it's a world in which we live. And so we're requesting this evening or bringing before you a policy that basically says in the most narrow way that prohibits employees recording others in the workplace, or during work hours without the other party knowing it. And certainly we could call, bring specific examples or specific concerns forward. We certainly don't want to do that. But the idea is that these things do happen. Now there's a concern that this doesn't go too far. And so we were very careful in crafting this policy in light of concerns that have been addressed by the federal regulatory bodies, making sure we don't run afoul any of existing policy, rule, regulation, or law. And again, we're kind of working on this for a couple of years and have brought this forward in its current form. So those are the policies that are before you this evening for your consideration. Our code requires policy amendments to be adopted by council through resolution, and so that's what's being brought before you. So in the context of my prior statement about if you have any general or specific concerns that might lend themselves better to discussion and study session, we certainly stand ready to do that. Otherwise, I'll try to answer any questions that you have.
Now, when you reference study session, are you talking about executive session?
I am not.
Okay, explain the difference, because I apologize for...
We had talked as a staff about the venue that we wanted to present to council.
Okay.
And our presumption, I think, as staff, and hopefully it's yours as well, that a study session environment is more conducive to exchange, being able to put concerns generally on the table, as opposed to when we're in a situation where staff is bringing to you a specific proposal for your action and consideration. Kind of speaks to the earlier discussion this evening on the first two items on the agenda.
So would you be talking about moving forward this evening with these, or setting up a study session to discuss these in the future?
Staff is recommending your approval of these policy amendments, but we certainly want to be sensitive to any general or specific concerns council might have.
Thank you. Mr. Billingsley?
I believe the last statement clarifies it. We're looking for action tonight, but instead of, if there's going to be a lot of questions and or comments or what have you, he says study session, we typically call it a work session. We could do a work session at a later date if there was a need to go more in depth to those changes.
Okay. What do other municipalities, the one question that I always ask, and I hadn't had a chance to really review this one in depth, is what do other municipalities implement in regards to addressing these two issues?
Well, as you might guess, and when it comes to the general harassment policies, they can be all over the board. You have to, and I've been involved in municipal and county HR work for about 40 years, I hate to admit sometimes, but I found over time policies are a two-edged sword. They cut both ways. And so if you're an entity that promulgates a wide, sweeping, broad policy that says we'll protect our employees under any circumstances for any reason and what have you, sometimes you're called upon to do that, and you can't envision all of the specific circumstances that may come our way in relationship to this. So we have to be very careful as we craft a policy to make sure that it accomplishes our purpose. And sometimes ambiguity is built in purposely, but I can tell you that the policies that I've reviewed from others run the gamut between many, many pages and a very short expression of policy. This, I hope, is a happy medium for us. And again, the first half is what we already have. But in practice, we've left a lot to interpretation or what have you. And so what the proposal is bringing to you our desire to bring a little more definition to the concept of harassment, because it is a misunderstood term, I think, generally in the workplace, and this cuts across private, public sector. So sometimes what employees think is harassment is not really harassment, and we could go into that if you wanted to. On the recording policy, again, it's a situation that is kind of, I don't know if it's, we could characterize it being kind of even between those that have and don't have. I certainly didn't poll all 91 cities and towns in the state. But it's also maybe, maybe not. And this is just a situation, it's just our call on this one.
So the only two specific questions I would have for you is, the first one would be super easy for you to answer quickly, is the recording policy. I know that in the past, when I have questions like, say, with signs during election time, and, you know, our ordinance says one thing, the county has another, the state has another, and Ms. Garcia always says we don't want to have policies or ordinances that conflict with state. So if the state says one thing, what happens, say, Brent and Cliff, not to use you, but you're both employees, they have an issue with one another, but one recorded the other not being appropriate. How does that play out? And let's pretend Brent's not the town manager in this case.
I'm not.
Let me give it a shot, Scott. Every organization I've ever worked for had a similar policy. It's really difficult to be a supervisor and go into a situation where you're discussing perhaps disciplinary actions, et cetera, with an employee, and not know whether you're being recorded or not. And we actually do have a recording policy in the police department, but not for the rest of the town. Typically, like I said, those come about either by litigation or by standard practice from other entities. When I was at Maricopa, it came about by litigation. There was somebody recording individuals in the work environment, and they were picking and choosing which questions to ask at which times to piece information together to make a case. And after that occurred, a couple people lost their jobs, but a recording policy came about. So it's standard practice for governments to make sure that there's a certain level of trust that exists in organizations.
Understandable. Thank you.
I have a question from the employee's viewpoint. If an employee thinks that his supervisor is harassing them and they want to record it, because it would be my word against his word if I went to complain about it, how do we protect the employee?
They just need to announce that they're recording the conversation.
Okay. Good enough, thank you.
Go ahead, Councilmember Hawkins.
Yeah, shouldn't we put in there an exemption for the police department? Because if they have cameras and recording during their duties, because see, it says if they're an employee during their performing their duties or on the clock, so to speak, that they can't do that. We need to maybe put an exemption for the police department, because I'm a believer in having body cameras or dash cameras, and they record vocal and video. So I'm wondering if we need to put an exemption for the police department.
Mayor, Councilmember Hawkins, they're specifically,
I mean, in the performance of their duties. I'm not saying that they go around recording each other. I'm talking about when they're dealing with the public.
there is certainly in course and scope, there's issues in the police department where surreptitious recording or one-party recording would take place. We dealt with that issue, council member, and I can't recall how the discussion came down.
Well, I just don't want, somebody coming along and suing us because, the police department recorded, an arrest or whatever.
Practically speaking, that wouldn't happen.
We need to be really careful discussing this topic due to ongoing litigation that involved recording surreptitiously. So I would suggest we not talk about that any further in the public record.
Okay.
To your point, Scott, The intention of this policy is employee to employee, not specific to body cams or police officers operating in their daily capacity as a police officer. But yes, we currently have a lawsuit that involves this, so I just don't want to get off onto that.
Okay, well, no, that answers my question.
Specifically to
We're
point,
talking employee to employee, so,
Well, what about,
specifically to the point, council member, there's a clause in there that says that unless authorized to do so by the town manager or designee, and certainly we would consider the practice in the police department in the course and scope of their duties and responsibilities to constitute the approval, practically speaking.
all right, but I was just, wondering.
I'm assuming that when we're recording for this meeting, that this is an authorized recording, and everybody knows that, so this is not in any violation?
Councilmember Anderson, I could not speak to the specific legalities involved, but I know that certainly our interview rooms, there's no question about that. Okay. Might there be some circumstance in a clandestine investigation that would require, that would justify the recording of the police officer of an individual that did not know that? That would certainly be the case, but I would represent that in course and scope of employment is certainly an authorized recording.
Due to this being brought out by something, is there any, I'm trying to carefully craft my question. There's been other things that we've done in reaction to other things happening in litigation, and then it has come back because we did that and we were in litigation. Are we at any risk in that? Because I'm not aware of what you're referencing, so I apologize.
We very carefully have taken our time in bringing this forward, and the timing is right to bring it forward now in terms of not adding liability to ourselves, and it is not reactionary based on that case.
And I wish I knew what case you were talking about. No, I know. I want that on the record. I don't. So I don't think any of us do. So my only thing is going back to what you had mentioned, like if you tell your supervisor you're recording, then, I don't know. I have an issue just going against with what the state statute already says, but I'm not in HR.
Mayor Walter, I'm not aware of any conflicting state statute with this particular ordinance.
Okay.
If you're specifically
because I thought this
being a one-party state.
Yeah, I thought that was a statute.
I'll defer to legal counsel. I don't believe that this is in conflict with state statute. This simply gives, as an employer, we have the opportunity, I think we have the right to express an expectation in relationship to communication with our employees.
I agree.
It's just my position, but I'm not a lawyer.
Cliff, can you, I just want to...
Members of the council, I agree with Mr. Barber. I mean, we may have a general statute about allowing one person to record conversations, but in the employment context, there's essentially a contractual relationship that the employee takes on with their employer. And as long as it's something that's in the personnel policy, that's something that the employee is put on notice of. And I don't think there would be a conflict in this situation.
Okay, that's all I was looking for. Thank you. All right, anybody else? Okay, Councilmember Cortez.
So in the document, it says there could be no harassment of religion, sex, and age limit says 40 and over. I'm just trying to understand why we would single out anyone over the age of 40 and just not be discrimination of age in general, because being a young person in the workforce, you can be equally discriminated against as being a senior citizen in the workforce. So I'm just trying to understand why that says 40.
The 40 years old simply reflects the EEOC regulations regarding being able to bring an age discrimination claim. If you're not 40 years old, you can't bring an age discrimination claim.
Somebody that's 19 cannot bring an age discrimination claim. You must be 40 years or older in order to legitimately bring a claim of age discrimination in the workplace.
Is there any way to clarify that in the policy? Because like workplace harassment, I can understand where Councilmember Cortez was coming from, just in the way that it's written of saying if I'm in my 30s and you're in your 20s, that, you know, it wouldn't matter if we were harassing each other.
Let me give that a shot. So the EEOC defines several special populations, women, religious, racial, age. So that's specifically speaking to discrimination as defined by EEOC law as being over 40 years old. It doesn't have anything to do with one person discriminating against another and how old they are. It has to do with age discrimination, specifically saying you're too old to do this job, or you're aged out in terms of some specific requirement in a profession. So that's just using what's defined in the EEOC statutes as a special population.
Okay. And again, excuse the questions, HR is not my background experience. So any other questions?
Well, I think I'd like to just make a clarification in my own mind. What we're saying is about the authorized recording is the town has the right as an employer to set certain rules. We could set a rule saying you can't use an iPhone at work.
She got disconnected.
Right? So this is what we're doing here. Am I interpreting that right?
Councilmember Anderson, yes, you are. Specifically, as we sought legal counsel, specifically the town must be able to articulate, as we say here in the policy, the town has legitimate and non-discriminatory justification to support the recording ban. We must state that specifically, and then we provide 4 examples of what those are. Yeah, I think you are reading it right, yes.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions?
I just want to make a statement in support of both of these policies. In my former life, I was an affirmative action officer. I was also a manager and director of large groups of employees where these types of issues arose. And a policy like this is very important to protect not only the employees, but the employer as well from unsubstantiated accusations. So I think it's safe to say that if any claim were made of harassment, that it would be fairly adjudicated to benefit the employee and also to protect the employer. So I definitely support both of these policies.
And I like that you took your time, you researched from other municipalities, you brought it forward, and you had patience with all of our questions. Any other questions? Okay. All right, with that, we need a motion.
Make a motion to adopt resolution number 1687-19, resolution of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, adopting revisions to the Town of Florence personnel policy.
Second?
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
And motion carries. Thank you. Item B is discussion, approval, and disapproval of Vice Mayor John Anderson attending the 2019 Water Now Summit in Austin, Texas. Vice Mayor Anderson.
Well, there's this Water Now conference is a national conference. They have a lot of stuff going on for us. I found out that they also have some funding, some grants for us, and I'm hoping that, well, the town manager just left. He was supposed to give me an update tonight. Jennifer, do you know, can I ask her to come out?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, we are currently researching those grant opportunities. There are 3 different programs that are available, and they've just released their grant applications to the street. in having discussions with our Public Works Director, Chris Salas, he's identified a potential project, and I have reached out to the Bureau of Reclamation in Denver to ask some questions to see if this project would be a good fit for this program.
Okay. They've offered to help too, so you have their addresses, right?
Yes, sir, I do. And I also understand there's some planning grant funds available as well, so we'll be looking into those.
So I think my fee to go to this is cost that we will recover. And a matter of fact, part of my cost for going there are some grants or I don't know what to call them, but they're going to refund me part of my expenses. So I don't think I'll spend $1,000. I think it'll be something less than that.
All right. Are there any questions from council? I did check with Ms. Garcia. We do have the funding in this available in our budget. So with that, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize John Anderson to attend the 2019 Water Now Summit in Austin, Texas, in an amount not to exceed $1,000.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same side. Motion carries. All right. Can't wait for you to bring back the information.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. All right, council numbers, oh my goodness gracious. All right, item number C is discussion, approval, and disapproval of appointing members to the Florence Youth Commission. Boys and girls, I am so happy that you guys are all here today, and really David's the only boy. I really love that you guys applied and you're moving forward with this. I want to turn it over at this time to Mr. Nixon, who has really been spearheading with this program.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, before you is your consideration and hopefully your approval of our candidates for the Youth Commission. Just real quick review. Back in August, we had the first and second reading of the ordinance to establish the Youth Commission. After your approval at the August 20th meeting, we started our publicity efforts, recruitment efforts to get council members, to get commission members.
Future council members.
I'm going too fast here, I'll slow down. Excuse me. Our first deadline for the applications was August 31st. That came and went without any applications. We stepped up our efforts, communicated with the counselor, the head counselor over at Florence High School, and we also, myself went and spoke to the student council at Florence High School, and I also took the opportunity to talk to members of our teen council as well. By mid-October, we had 2 applications, so we were gradually getting there. I constantly repeated the publicity through the town website, town news releases as well, trying to get enough applications. As you may recall, the ordinance called for 5 members and 2 alternates. So, excuse me, that's what the least we were hoping for. Fast forwarding now to the 1st of February, we have 6 applications, and that's what is before you right now, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council. What we are hoping to do, pending your approval tonight, I would like to have an introduction meeting with our candidates / commission members to review the process, go over the bylaws according to the ordinance, so all the members are familiar with them. At that time, we're going to, it'll be up to the members to set their meeting date. The ordinance had stated meeting once a month with special meetings approved through the chairman after checking with me as well. So what we're looking at, again, would be an initial meeting, hoping for your approval tonight. Next Wednesday, the 27th at 6 p.m. And then Director Brian Hughes and I talked about making a suggestion to the commission members in regards to the actual meeting date. We're going to suggest the third Thursday of each month, also at 6 p.m. We selected that date for a couple of reasons. One, to work around our department's other boards and commissions, meetings that are already established, as well as to not conflict and coordinate with the teen council. 5 of the 6 members, candidates tonight, are members of the teen council as well. And as you can tell, they're eager to serve their community in a new level as well. With your permission, Mayor, I would like to call the candidates up here and just let them introduce themselves and have them stand right here beside me. So if we could have the 6 candidates come up, please. Form a line.
Hello, I'm Jaden McMillan. I am the alternate, and I am very honored to be here.
My name is Grace. I'm up for a 1-year term, and I'm also very honored to be here.
Hi, I'm Hannah, and I'm excited for this.
Hi, I'm Kara, and I'm part of the 2-year term.
Hi, I'm Lolita Vasquez, and I'm part of the 2-year term.
I just want to add, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, that, you know, when I was in high school, there was no way I could have stood up before a board or a council like this, given my name and look cool about it. I probably would have fainted dead away. So I think they deserve a round of applause for just doing that. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to keep those kiddos standing up here for a second. I want to say thank you to all of you who applied, all of you who have participated in the Florence Teen Council. You guys are stepping up, and you guys are going to make a positive impact in our community. I'm really excited for the opportunity for our council to work with you, and I can't wait to hear your ideas and see what our councils are going to do together. So thank you so much. All right, with that, we are going to go ahead and make an appointment, and I'm going to read them all together for you. The first is appointment of Grace Diorio, Hannah Earl, to a 1-year term on the Florence Youth Commission with a term to expire October 31st on 2019. Appointment of Kendra Johnson, Cara Roberts, and Dolores Vasquez to a 2-year term on the Florence Youth Commission with a term to expire October 31st, 2020. Appointment of Jaden McMillan to a 2-year term as alternate of the Florence Youth Commission with a term to expire October 31st, 2020. So with that, I need a motion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously, you are appointed. Congratulations to our very first Youth Commission. Can we get a picture of all of us together? Our council and their Youth Commission? Let's go on down for a moment. This is a historical time.
Again, thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council.
All right. Mr. Ben Bitter is up to the podium. That tells us we're on number 9, legislative update. Tell us what's good.
Mayor, members of the council, in the interest of time, I'll just touch on one bill today because I don't want to put you or myself to sleep. We're talking about all the things that occur at the legislature. That bill is Senate Bill 1460. It is this year's version of the digital goods bill. If you remember, this bill came up last year and had a potential to greatly impact the revenues of cities and towns. Again, this bill is back, threatening to affect our revenues as well. Basically, the bill would take any software that comes as a service or is delivered online, and that would no longer be taxable. But if you received a software at a store, so for example, if you bought TurboTax online, that would no longer be taxed. But if you bought TurboTax at the store, that would be taxed. Really does not make much sense to me or others that are much more experienced in the tax code. But the idea is that, I guess they're saying that is software as a service is the term that is being used these days. And because Arizona has had tradition of not taxing services, that is how they're trying to argue this. But again, I would argue that if you received the same software that you would by going to the store, that is still a tangible product. That is not a service, that is a product that you are purchasing. That's the argument that the League of Cities has made, and I think we will have similar traction with the legislators this year and hopefully killing that bill as we did last year. So happy to answer any questions you have about any legislation. That's really scary because there are 1,200 bills, but if you have any questions on this or other bills, happy to do.
What was that bill number?
1460, Senate Bill 1460.
1460.
They had a legislative call on Monday because they didn't take a break on Monday, so there's a 10 o'clock meeting.
So you're saying we should support that or not support it?
We oppose that one.
Oppose.
Definitely on the opposed side.
You're getting ready to log in?
Yep, I'll do that when I get home.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for being here. We appreciate all you do. Managers report.
Okay, exceptionally brief tonight. First, I was handed this to read to the council by Larry Johnson because he missed the call to the public earlier. It says the Greater Florence Chamber regarding the Memories on Main Street car show would like to thank the town and all of their sponsors for our support, including the town in the effort from this last Saturday. They were fortunate to welcome over 250 cars and motorcycles into downtown Florence. Special thanks to Mayor Walter, Vice Mayor Anderson, and the council members Larson and Wall for attending the event, and wants us to keep our eye out for the Muscles on Main car show in the fall. Lastly, and council already knows this, so this is for everybody out there in TV land and in the audience, our very own Lisa Garcia has been selected as the International Municipal Clerks Region 8 Director. Region 8 covers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 states in the western U.S., and it's a supreme honor for someone from Arizona to represent in terms of that rotation, but especially to have one of our fine employees from the town of Florence serve as that capacity, or in that capacity. That's all I have.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, at this, we have call to the council for current events only. Councilmember Hughes.
I don't have anything.
Councilmember Cortez.
I just wanted to give my apologies for not being physically in attendance, but I did my best to be there by phone, even though I messed it up on accident. My daughter gave birth to my second grandchild on Saturday, so I missed the first one, so I definitely have to be there for the second one. But as far as town visits, I did want to point out all the positive feedback I have gotten from community members, business owners, and everyone
right, thank you so much. Councilmember Larson.
Okay, so it was very clear. I obviously walked away. First, I guess I just wanted to say that I'm a very emotional, passionate person. It doesn't take much to make me cry, to be honest. But I came back because I am here to represent the people. And this board, as much as I love and respect these people, like I said, I have to remember that although I desire to be a part of this board, I'm here to represent the people. So my questions and concerns and things I wanted to bring up shouldn't be silenced. Okay, I'm not gonna do this. Okay, I have to get myself under control here. All right, so it's, I just wanted to say that I hope this never becomes the norm, that we are able to, move on from this, and that we are able to work on a unified front and with common respect on the board. And that, again, I remember that I'm here to represent the people and to bring those questions and concerns that our public might have. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Wall.
I just want to say how awesome the car show was this Saturday. I didn't get to attend last year, and my understanding is that this year was almost twice as good. I didn't know that my husband had any interest whatsoever in cars, but as we walked up and down Main Street and on the side streets, it became obvious that he knows a lot more about cars than I gave him credit for. But the chamber and the town did an awesome job. The vendors who were there, all of the participants were so friendly. If you had questions, they were more than happy to tell you the details of their restorations and their beautiful cars. So I'm looking forward to the next one, and it sounds like it's going to be even bigger and better. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hawkins.
Yes, I was there. I was working at the Legion helping the other members. I'm a member, but I was at the car show, so I just want people to know. But anyway, and I want to give a shout out to Ruth Harrison. She was down before the home tour. She was downtown washing windows in some of the vacant buildings, and so that's good to see. The community, somebody in the community stepping up and doing something good for the community without being asked or anything. And I hope maybe we can have 2 car shows a year, because the car show is it's really taken off for only 2 years. It's amazing. I'm thinking maybe we could have maybe some bluegrass music or some type of music over at the Silver King. I know there was music there, but I mean like a kind of a festival in conjunction with one of the car shows. That way we're kind of covering for your advertising and everything. You're covering multiple events with making it easier for everybody. Anyway,
Thank
that's
you.
all I have.
Vice Mayor Anderson.
Well, I want to echo Bill's thank you to Ruth, because I heard from the Parks and Rec Department that they recognized that you were washing windows downtown. And maybe you can get a job doing that now, Ruth. But thank you. Also want to express my appreciation for the car show, because they did an outstanding job. Thank the chamber, thank the town, thank the Parks and Rec, everybody who participated in that. Also want to bring up that there's going to be the GI Bill parade and signing on March the 30th. And this is going to be in recognition of Ernest McFarland. So we're looking forward to having a pretty good crowd for that. I want to invite everybody out. Also want to recognize the Arts and Culture Committee for all the things that they do, but also last Saturday they had a Strings of Sonoran concert at the Suter House, and I was so impressed. It was young people from I think maybe 7th, 8th grade through the 12th grade, and once they started playing, you would think it was the Philharmonic. They were so good. It was violins, guitars, cellos, thanks to our arts and culture. Other thing I wanted to bring up, we got a white paper on the PRS from our personnel director. I would like to see us have some discussion on this. I don't know if this should be in an open meeting or a work session or an executive session. So take your recommendation on that, Brent. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to start with, I received an email between the last meeting and now, and it is from a Mr. Rowley, and he just wanted to send a note of appreciation. It says, just a short note, all changes to our deed restrictions passed. Within 10 days, we should file with Pinal County. Thanks for the town's assistance with the modifications of setbacks and the understanding of our needs. Please give a special thanks to Larry Harmer, Jim Allen, and the town council for their support. So I just wanted to pass that along. The car show this weekend was absolutely amazing. They're already talking about next year, having up to 600 cars, and whether they want to start it down at Heritage Park and have it in conjunction with some type of a festival, or run it clear down all the way to Burger King. So, we have a lot of planning to do. It was a success. It brought business down onto our main street. It brought people into our community, so it was really exciting to be able to share that. Ran into the police chief. He was in incognito with his grandson or fire chief, incognito with his grandson on his shoulders. So it was a really good weekend. It's been a great time in Florence. So just want to say thank you. And Mr. Nixon, under your leadership with Mr. Hughes as well, our Florence Teen Commission, our Florence Teen Council, they are doing phenomenal. I'm so proud of them, and I really am looking forward to see what they do. They have their youth symposium coming up this Saturday from 9 to 2. So if any council members want to pop in, I'm sure they'd love to see our faces. All right, with that, we do have an executive session, so I need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn to executive session?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Michelle, we'll see you in executive session. We are adjourned.